Feel free if I'm going too long, just say we.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good evening, friends of St. Patrick Parish in Lawrence, Massachusetts, and anyone else who is watching this live stream conversation with Father Paul O'Brien, pastor of our faith community. We are going to have a number of questions that I'm going to be addressing to Father Paul about the reality that we are facing as a community here in the city of Lawrence and in our parish community. My name is Hosman Ospino, and I serve in the parish as the coordinator of Hispanic ministry along with my wife. Good evening, Father Paul.
Good evening.
Father Paul, we have received a number of questions from our parishioners throughout this week, and I want to go through some of those questions, and you can please guide us, with the information that you may have, and also your own wisdom. A number of parishioners from our community have died in the midst of this crisis, no? So how do we mourn their loss?
So unfortunately, there are a number of people from St. Patrick's who have died as a result of COVID. There are more than I probably know. When we have burials, either at Holy Sepulchre or elsewhere, other cemeteries, some families tell me this is a result of COVID. I don't pry about reasons for death, so I'm not even sure I know everyone who has. Most of the people I know who have died of COVID from our parish are senior citizens who had other underlying conditions, but again, I don't know everybody exactly who has died. So we mourn the same way that we normally do, without all of the gifts that we normally do. For family members who have been through this, it's a huge difference to not have the ability to come together and celebrate a funeral. When you go to the cemetery to have a brief service to bury the person you love, if you're Catholic, it really hits you that this feels strange. And it should feel strange because it's not nearly the fullness of our faith tradition. So right now, we're praying for the person who has died, and we're respectfully committing their bodies to the earth. Later, we'll get back together, hopefully, and celebrate funeral liturgies here in the church. All the more important, therefore, because this is such a mix, that we connect with one another when we find out somebody has died, that we reach out directly, ideally by phone, but otherwise electronically, that we assure one another that we're praying, and that we keep checking up on one another. I think many people in this parish are doing that. That's the way we have a huge parish here, so we rely upon all of us to reach out to one another, and that's what we're doing, hopefully, in the course of this.
It's been a while since our churches had to close in order to protect everybody. And the state of Massachusetts recently announced that houses of worship can reopen. So what does that mean for us?
We were surprised, I think most people were surprised, that on Monday the governor issued return to operations for construction, manufacturing, and houses of worship. There are very strict state guidelines and also guidelines from the Archdiocese about what needs to be done to resume masses in church buildings or outside of church buildings. So the goals here are to celebrate the Eucharist so that everybody who appropriately wants to receive the Eucharist can now do so, not just participating virtually, and at the same time, probably the bigger priority, if you think about it, is to maintain an impeccably safe environment. If we come back together for the sacramental good of receiving the Eucharist, which is such a big deal, but in the process we pass on this virus, that is crazy. That's one of the things I think we've learned in these months, that to do something, when you know there's a deadly virus, to do anything, even the greatest good, the celebration of the Eucharist, that could possibly pass on death, it's completely contradictory. So there are protocols for celebrating masses, public masses now, in church buildings. Some of the things are fairly straightforward, figuring out what is appropriate social distancing seating, figuring out how you mark aisles for people going in one direction or the other, removing hymnals, So some things are pretty straightforward, cleaning the church, obviously, before anything begins. But then others are more complicated, particularly for a congregation the size of ours. I see people on the street every day in Lawrence. Most people who are Catholic tell me they really hunger to return to Mass. And yet, does that mean that everybody's going to come out, or does it mean that a limited number of people are going to come out? We have absolutely no way of gauging that. There are easy online reservation systems to sign up for coming to church, and some parishes are apparently going to do that. But in our community, a lot of our members don't have access to technology, or they don't have technological know-how. In our community, because we can have a couple thousand people here on a weekend, to clean the church appropriately between each Mass, to do all of that is going to take some time. And even if you use a reservation system, we'd have people lining up 6 feet apart in order to enter a church to have everything checked. At the beginning of this, because there are so many unknowns, and because we have so many people, and because there's still real concern about this virus, my happy announcement tonight is that we're going to return to the celebration of public masses this Sunday outside. The state is encouraging us to do this. The church in other parts of the world is doing this. If we can, particularly because the season is so good in terms of weather, if we could eliminate the space questions, if we could eliminate the cleaning questions, if we could eliminate a lot of these practical unanswerables right now, I think that's our best bet. So as most of you know, we're blessed to have a parish property that's huge, and our parking lot is mammoth. After this, if you go to Google Maps, or you can do it while you're watching this, just do Google Maps over St. Patrick's to remember how ginormous this parking lot is. What we've been arranging in the last couple of days is the celebration of Sunday Mass this Sunday, May 24th, outside. I'll give you a few details of this, and we'll send out more to people in the next couple of days. So the police have been really helpful with this. Also, a shout out to Mayor Rivera, who's very supportive of it. We're going to block off David Burke Way, which is the street that runs from South Broadway past the rectory, past the parish center. So the property will be completely blocked off. There'll be no parking on the property. You'll come, if you're interested in coming to Mass, and park your car on the street. So you need to leave time to park and walk to the property. Everybody's going to enter the property by walking down David Burke Way. We'll have police barricades there. This is all very calm. Everybody needs to be wearing a mask. Everybody should, and you need your own mask. Everyone should bring their own hand sanitizer. Just put it in your pocket. When you come down to David Burke Way, the sanctuary for Mass, and I'll hold the details. It'll be interesting to see who has put this together. In front of the barn at the back of the parking lot, right in the back of the parking lot facing the train tracks, there will be the sanctuary area for the Mass, which will be on a raised platform. You can see that area from almost every part of the parking lot. So all the way over on Salem Street, all the area behind the parish center, even from David Burke Way. So when people come, it'll be very calm. You can go and you can bring your own chair if you want a chair. If you just have to maintain social distance, 6 feet, from people who are not part of your immediate household. If your immediate household is together, you don't have to maintain social distancing from one another. So you can go in, take a look at the parking lot, decide where you'd like to go, and keep your mask on through Mass. It's just doing the very same thing that we're doing on the street right now. I'm finding in Lawrence these days, people are very respectful and very good at maintaining social distance. So come to Mass early, I hope. We'll give some instructions about the distribution of communion. We're working on that. Thank you, Tom Cuddy. Thank you, Lawrence Police Department. It'll be very straightforward, and we'll start this Sunday. We'll see who comes, and we'll go from there. It's a work in progress. We have the best possible plan that we can put together for this Sunday, and then it's going to get a lot better as a result of what we learn. Masses will be celebrated in English at 10 a.m. this Sunday, and in Spanish at 1 p.m. this Sunday. We're leaving the time in between for any logistical anything. So Sunday, May 24th, outdoor Mass. The weather is predicted to be excellent. 10 a.m. English, 3 p.m. Spanish. Nobody should come to this or any Mass anywhere if they're in any way vulnerable to COVID-19. So particularly people who are elderly, people who have underlying physical conditions, you should really participate in Mass virtually at home. We'll have the live stream of this Sunday's Masses. We're going to change the time, beginning on Saturday at 4 p.m. in English and in Spanish at 5:30 p.m. So we'll take care of the live streams, vigil Masses for Sunday, and then on Sunday in person outdoors. Again, more information will be available quite soon at stpatrickparish.com. Hit the coronavirus button.
This reminds me of my childhood when I remember that I lived in a neighborhood when there was no parish and somebody donated a lot. And for almost 5 years, we had Mass precisely on this lot, everybody standing. The difference is that we didn't have to observe physical distancing.
Correct.
But on this one, we do. Now, Father, many of our parishioners are superbly grateful for live streaming the Masses, both in English and Spanish. And one of the questions is this going to continue even as we reopen?
So live streaming will continue, we hope, forever. We had that on our agenda to try to look at live streaming our Masses. We just had not gotten around to implementing it. David Bradley, the volunteer director of our TV ministry team, has given a ginormous amount of time to figure out the technology to make this happen. And it's still a work in progress. We'll continue to give people updates on that. But we will, by the end of this, I hope, be live streaming on a very good platform that will be on YouTube and on Facebook at the same time. And then the Mass recordings are there for good.
Now, this is a parish that is very active in terms of sacramental life. And people are wondering, what are the plans for baptisms, confirmations, first communions?
Everything that has been suspended, we will announce what the plans are as those plans develop. For everything sacramental, we're following the guidelines of the Archdiocese of Boston, and then whatever particulars have to do with our community. So there's nothing to announce yet on any of those. We have people who are preparing for the Easter sacraments who have not yet been initiated because there was no Easter vigil. We have children preparing for First Communion. We have people who are preparing for confirmation. These are really high priorities. We have families who are waiting to baptize their children. So they are very high priorities. As soon as we can thoughtfully, intelligently, and safely put this together, we'll communicate that day. So everyone just stand by. If you haven't heard anything, if you don't see it on our website, a plan has not yet been able to be developed.
At the heart of the life of this community is our meal center, Corunum. And some of the questions that have arrived are, one, does Corunum need volunteers at this very moment? And two, when will the meal center open again?
So Cor Unum, thank you to Diane Jarvis and to all of the people who assist her. Cor Unum is just a wonder. It is an inestimable blessing for this community. If you're not familiar with Cor Unum, this is a meal center we have on our parish property, beautiful restaurant where we serve nutritious, very terrific meals to anybody who's hungry, breakfast every day, dinner every day, 365 days a year. We serve 250,000 meals a year at Cor Unum. This is a community in which 75% of our children at any given time are at risk for hunger. So we're able as a community, it's at the heart of our life, as you say, we're able to take care of feeding one another, giving one another drink, welcoming one another every day. We benefited from the experience of the horrible Lawrence gas disaster that Cor Unum, when that took place almost 2 years ago, had to shift immediately to preparing meals and distributing them on a to-go basis. We famously never missed serving a scheduled meal at Cor Unum through the gas disaster and the months that went after that. So we knew at some point it was likely that meal service would have to be shut down, and we already knew how to shift to to-go meals. Like most people, I've totally lost track of time. I think it was a Sunday when Governor Baker announced the closing of restaurants and the limitation on gatherings. If it was a Sunday, that Monday morning, the very next morning, very good to-go meals began to be distributed from Cor Unum. I hope everybody in our community really feels proud of this. This should be a point of pride. We have never missed a meal for people in this community through this whole pandemic experience. So we're serving 300 or 400 meals a day. Again, breakfast, same hours, 6 a.m. to 8 a.m., dinner 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. We have a really good, tight, and extremely public health conscious group of volunteers and who are preparing the meals. People come to the door of Cor Unum, social distancing is observed, people are given a robust meal in a to-go bag and something to drink, and it's been working really well. So probably serving 300 or 400 meals a day right now. We have a beautiful big dining room in Cor Unum, but when you add to that dining room the requirement of social distancing, I am not good at math, but I believe if you just took the number of people we're serving today and tried to serve them in that dining room, even if they were just standing up 6 feet apart, it would be absolutely impossible to serve that in that dining room, maintaining social distancing. So we have no idea when the dining room will open, and that's a loss because we're losing that immediate sense of community, but that loss is fine. The fundamental mission of Cor Unum is to serve food to hungry people. We will continue to do that. We are not concerned about any limitations moving forward. And when dining room service is able to be restored, whenever that is, I have absolutely no idea, that'll be a return blessing. But the fundamental mission will be accomplished. Volunteers, long answer to that short question. We have good volunteers. If you're interested in volunteering, go to corunummealcenter.org, or you can get to that through the parish website. Go to the volunteer button, and you can submit your interest in an email. Our volunteer coordinator will have the updated information about whether your help is needed now, and if not, your help may be needed later on.
Another area of energy, through which we do evangelization here in our faith community at St. Patrick's is Lawrence Catholic Academy, and it's been, a good year for our school. It's been a good number of years. What's the status? How has the school been affected by this?
We need to potentially do a full webinar on this. It has been an amazing experience how successfully LCA, Lawrence Catholic Academy, has transitioned to remote learning. Our school faculty and staff in March began to plan for remote learning, knowing that this might take place, but there wasn't a lot of time to plan. It was, I believe, Friday the 13th when we were told school is shutting down for at least 2 weeks. And I was present for the faculty meeting where really, really great educators who had very little or even no experience with remote learning realized on Monday morning we have to open this school remotely. There is not going to be a break here like a snow day. We have to transfer this to remote learning. So I'm surprised, and in retrospect I guess I shouldn't be surprised, how quickly, I mean within a week or so, most families were very engaged in this process. I'm not surprised how quickly our faculty, because they're really great, stepped up to learn what's involved and how quickly our kids jumped into all of this. What has taken place in this experience shows what we've always believed about LCA. This is a place in which children and families, significantly because of a wonderful teaching core and leadership, they understand that their lives matter, their education matters. It is God who has brought them into this planet. They are responsible for knowing and developing their gifts, becoming educated people to get out and serve God. Whatever our families' finances are, most of our families' finances are not great. Everybody is sacrificing to try to make education through LCA possible, and this has revealed what LCA education is. I did not find that our parents were all thrilled to do this. You're a parent. I doubt you were thrilled to be in charge of remote learning. But I see parents, and again, I'm seeing so many people on the street every day walking, parents saying, didn't want to do this. I've learned how to do it. It's not all easy, but it's really, really working. The other thing, again, long answer to short question, our staff has just been tremendous. One of the great things about remote learning is you get analytics every day about what's going on. So since March, for example, the remote learning curriculum we have for about, I think, 4 different subjects, it may be more, it shows us that our students have asked more than 500,000 questions since March. It shows each skill that they are learning, each skill in which they become proficient, each skill in which that they master. It shows how many questions each particular student is answering, is answering and asking. So there's, I think it's like 30 questions is a really great rate for a particular topic. We've got kids asking way more. It shows us exactly what hours they're on, days, nights, weekends. If a kid goes missing, like we're not getting, most kids are on most of the time, but if someone goes missing, the teacher sees that immediately. We're able to contact the family. Our counselors are available if there's something relevant to counseling. So our teachers, I saw a mom, maybe it was last night in CVS or the night before, and she said, this has gone so well for her child. And she said, it's because my kid's teacher is right in there with him, following along and holding him accountable. I suspect the mother is really the one who's doing a lot of the holding accountable, but at any rate, it's going really, really well.
These days, one of the biggest questions that everybody's asking at all levels, whether government, homes, organizations, businesses, is finances. And I want to ask 3 questions interrelated, that are associated with finances. One question that a parishioner asked is, has anybody been laid off at St. Patrick Parish during this financial crisis? 2, the parish has been involved in the process of updating the elevator. So where are we and how has that been affected? And thirdly, we also are in the midst of the Inspiring Hope campaign. So has there been any effect on this?
So I won't go too deep into this. We hopefully will be talking about this at Mass in upcoming weeks because of the spring collection. And if you are on our donor list, you should have hopefully received a spring collection letter, or you will soon receive it. It's, what do we call the general mailing? Bulk mailing. So some people I know have received them. So number 1, we got a SBA loan at the parish and also at the school at the beginning of that process. So that covered 8 weeks of salary and benefits, and it covered some utilities. So that's a huge blessing, really a huge blessing. The parish has lost income. I think it's going to end up being for this fiscal year, which ends at the end of June. I think it's about $75,000 in offertory income. Some people have really been generous, but obviously, not everybody is here or contributing. We would be in a good spot as long as our spring collection comes in. We have an additional challenge. As many of you know, our 55-ish-year-old elevator has come to the end of its life. We had a lot of issues with it this fall and winter. So we have to do a major renovation of the elevator. And that's come in at, this is terrible, my brain is bad right now, at about $175,000.
Yes.
So we still had a $135,000 goal for the spring collection. We've got the $175,000 for the elevator project. We just depend upon everybody to be as generous as they can be right now. I don't know anyone's, I know some people's financial situation, but I don't know most people's. If we continue to be generous, we will meet this. If we have to dip into savings, our savings is rainy day money and it's raining, that will be okay. So financially, we really are very stable. To the direct question, thank God no staff member here has been furloughed or laid off or reduced salary or anything. We have a small, and this includes you, Officeman, we have a small in number, extremely hardworking staff here, and I feel very blessed that we've been able to keep everybody fully employed. So the elevator project has begun. All the building of the elevator is done. It's going to take maybe 4 months or so. So that's in process. Then the last is the Inspiring Hope campaign, is a $1.25 million capital campaign that we started in the fall to fully renovate the stained glass windows in this church for $1 million and to contribute $250,000 to Lawrence Catholic Academy's long-term capital projects. So I'm not going to give you a detailed announcement about that. What I can tell you is when you all find out how generous people were in a very brief period of time when we were conducting this campaign, it will really make you feel great about our parish. And there has been no negative effect of which I'm aware on that project. But I'll have full information about that within the near future.
Great. Thank you, Father Paul.
I got to tell you, actually, so I was in the supermarket today, and there was a member of the parish who has made a very generous gift to that campaign, who is struggling with this and struggling with that, and then said, hey, I need an invoice for that gift. I thought, he's thinking, this is like St. Patrick's 101. This is such a hard time for him, for his family, and within just a few minutes of conversation, he's thinking about what he's giving to our parish. He really loves it, and we have so many people like this.
It is fascinating, So we all heard, Father Paul, that, the cost of updating the elevator is $175,000. So if anybody has $175,000 floating around, just, you know where to write the check.
Okay, go ahead.
This lockdown, has been hard on everyone, pretty much without exception. And how can we live the gospel mission in our parish to serve the underserved in new ways, Father Paul?
So some of us are in a position, Corunum's an example, LCA is an example, of physically using our gifts, at least our time and our talent, to serve people who are underserved. Many of us cannot have physical contact with other people, or we don't have a direct ministry like that. So I think it's just considering, whom do I know in my family, among my friends, and certainly in this parish, whom do I know who may have any need, and how do I most directly reach out to speak with that person? I know, Ofsman, you were doing this along with our staff, calling people whom we know just to check in and see how they're doing, to assure people we're praying for one another. I think this is a beautiful time not to be snooping into one another's lives, but to consider, well, here's this person in my family or friend or parishioner. What do I imagine that person's need might be? What am I capable of doing? If it's nothing physically, I can pray and I can communicate. I can make a phone call and I can assure the person that we're unified in God and one another. So just being creative. Some people have a lot of time on their hands. This is time that's available to reach out to one another.
One of the questions that parishioners are asking also, and actually this goes back to the sacraments, confessions.
So we do not yet have the plan for reopening confessions here. We want to make that sacrament, which is so important, particularly in our community. So many people are devoted to that sacrament. We want to make it actually available to everybody who wants to access the sacrament. Until we know how to do that safely for everybody, we have not yet begun public celebration of that sacrament. If we were in a small parish in rural somewhere and there were just 100 of us, some of these questions would be very easy to answer. We're a huge parish with a whole lot of diversity, and fair is fair. We want to be sure that we're offering what everybody wants, but everybody in a safe way.
This is one of my favorite questions, and I think that it shows the generosity of our parishioners. No? How can we help the parish at this time?
That is a reflection of the generosity of parishioners. So pray, pray, pray. When this first took place, we encouraged people to go to Catholic television, Catholic TV, to participate in masses. because we knew that their production value was very high, and we didn't know how long this crisis would go on. We had talked about if it goes on longer, we should figure out how to live stream from St. Patrick's. The reason that we ended up live streaming is so many people said if it were ever possible, because lots of other parishes were live streaming, for me to know that I'm praying at the same time as other parishioners. I don't need to see them, but I really would love to know that I'm with them because community is so important. So supporting our parish by participating in the Eucharist was the most important thing we did every week before COVID, and it remains the most important every week during and after COVID. Your participating in Mass is the most important thing that you do as a Catholic. We say it's the source of every other good we do, and it's the summit. Somehow every good thing any of us does is fed through the Eucharist, and the most important thing is for us to participate faithfully in the Eucharist. I think actually you can get that, even if you're not able to receive communion, you can participate fully in the Eucharist. I think we see that in this, what's more important than for us to come together with all of our needs, with life, with death, with unanswered questions, to know that all of us are entering into the Lord, and therefore there's nothing but hope that He's going to show us how we move forward. So I think the combination of participating remotely or in person now in the Eucharist, praying in all the other ways you pray, and communicating with your fellow parishioners. We have parish groups that are connecting remotely. I believe the choir has been doing Zoom. I'm not positive, my brain is really mixed up these days. I know that parishioners are connecting with one another, so use the media that you have available to connect with whomever you can.
And let me bring this conversation to a close by asking a personal question, a more personal question. And some parishioners want to know, what have you been doing during all this time? You know, they want to know if you've been working, no?
So,
and let me actually, this is a series of just short questions. Have you been able to keep in touch, you know, with parishioners during this time? And at the end, you know, are you worried about anything in particular?
So mostly during this time, I have been smoking a lot of weed, a lot of weed. It's legal. I don't see a problem. No, I know that a lot of folks have had to deal with the reality of boredom because they're isolated and maybe the work they do has no connection to being remote. I have not been bored. I have not had any time to be bored. So I'm thankful for that. It's been super busy initially, all the details of organizationally of these various institutions, shutting them down and doing what we can do remotely. It's been very busy in terms of trying to care for people who are dealing with sickness and death. Our cemetery has been probably busier than normal. So there are periods of there are no meetings other than, well, so I'll take that back. There are no physical meetings, but most meetings have been taking place. There are chunks of the day, like my work day might end in this situation at 7, and I have nothing else that I have to do that evening. I'm not accustomed to having that much extra time. So that's been really great. And the gyms are closed, so I've been walking. I have walked, I believe, because I've looked at the map, I believe I have walked on every street in South Florence, and I would say maybe a third to a half of every street in North Florence. I finally bought a bicycle. I have never had my own bicycle as an adult, so I've been bike riding, which is terrific. And particularly in the course of walking, I get to talk to so many parishioners. I'm amazed how people can recognize you even when your face is covered with a mask. So if I ever have tried to be anonymous behind the mask, I know it doesn't work. I've been able to talk to lots of folks. People seem generally very calm. They ask really good questions. So I feel like I have a lot of contact. And again, thank God for technology. We're able to see people face to face. I think that's going to be a positive result of all of this. Meetings, teaching, doing it face to face remotely is a whole lot better than just being on the phone. So that's one. What were the others?
First one, how are you doing? Have you been in touch with parishioners?
So I've been in touch. Well, when I was signing the letters for the spring collection, it's not the first time. Normally, so I'm saying the name of a parishioner, I'm signing the letter. Normally, I'm thinking, oh, I'll see this. I last saw this person in such a mass. I'll see this person soon. I was highly aware signing these. If I could have contact with everybody, I really would. And that's, of course, impossible. We have, to repeat for the 27th time, we have such a big parish, thank God. So it's great that I've been able to be in contact with plenty of folks, but that you've been in contact with plenty of folks, Bernie's been in contact with plenty of folks, volunteers have been calling one another. That gives me real comfort because I wish I could do it directly with everybody. Am I worried about anything? I am not a worrier. So by a worrier, I mean someone who is getting really anxious or long-term stressed out or really caught up in all of the very logical questions we have about the future, all of the bad things that have been taking place, all of the legitimate fears we could have. So I have things that could worry me. I have things that can cause me anxiety. I have things that are really troublesome, but I've tried to learn as an adult to bring those questions to God, number one. I guess to first say, well, what am I going to do with this? I feel a worry, I feel anxiety, I feel this or that. I have to do something with this. I can make a choice. I can go into being a worried person, or I can think this through. I can talk to God about it. I can try to apply our faith to this situation. What guidance does our Catholic faith give me? And then I really try to make a plan, not just all these plans for mechanics around here, but what am I going to do moving ahead? What can I control? And I'm going to make the choice to do what I can do, to control the things I can control, and to let go of the huge things that I can't control. I don't have answers to most of the important questions that COVID-19 has brought in terms of workplaces and income and mechanics of safe distancing and the whole virus itself. I do not have control over this. I have to make a choice that I'm going to let go of that. I'm going to acknowledge I don't have control. I'm going to stay engaged with it. I'm going to pray about it. I'm going to pray for the people who are involved in making these decisions. But I don't have to go to bed worried and drawn down by things I can't control. But what can I control? I can control a whole lot of things. I can do a whole lot of things. And my job is to get out of bed and do them, do as much as I can.
Very good. Well, this is it in terms of the questions that we received for you, Father Paul. And so any final word of advice as we move forward?
So thank you to everyone who sent in questions. I don't know because if we did not answer a question that you submitted, it's not for lack of trying or, and the good news is, we know we're going to see, many of us will see one another soon, so we will have the ability now to answer questions directly. I encourage you to consider participating in the outdoor Mass this Sunday at 10 a.m. in English in our parking lot, this Sunday at 1 o'clock p.m. in Spanish in our parking lot. If that's not the right thing for you, and absolutely if you physically shouldn't do that, don't do it and don't worry about it. There's no obligation to participate in Sunday Mass. That's a serious obligation in our faith, but it's been lifted around the world. It's going to, that Mass obligation has been dispensed by the Cardinal, and that's into the indefinite future. A time will come when it will return, but don't worry about that. Participate in Mass remotely if you can, and I look forward to seeing as many people in whatever form as soon as we can. We'll follow through. Again, I'm a repetitive person by nature. Anything we know at St. Patrick's about plans for the future, as soon as those plans are developed, we communicate them. The plan for the return to public Mass outdoors was finalized this afternoon you were part of this meeting at about 3 o'clock, and it's being communicated tonight in this way. It'll go out on an email, it'll go out on our website. So if you don't see the answer to a question, if you don't see the plan for something that's important, The question has not been answered yet, or the plan has not been developed. As soon as we know anything, we try to get it out in many means. Last part of that is, if you already are not, the best way for updated information is to join Facebook or Twitter. Even if I don't have a social media identity, I don't have a personal account, even if you don't connect with anybody else on social media, you can just set up an account to know that you're getting the stream of information from here. On the homepage of our website, stpatrickparish.com, there is a coronavirus update page that has the latest significant updates. And you can also on the website go to the e-newsletter button, register on that, just send in your name, and you'll be part of an email announcement of anything that's new that will come to you. Electronic communications are obviously the best way to do this at this point.
Very good, Father Paul. So, well, thank you very much, and thank you everyone for spending these minutes with Father Paul O'Brien from St. Patrick Parish in Lawrence, Massachusetts. And the message is very clear. Stay safe, stay informed, and stay in communion through prayer as we move forward as a community of faith. God bless you.